Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast in partnership with my good buddy, Rick Bulman from ChurchHub.ai. Rick, what's up, man?
Hey, just living the dream. How about you?
Same thing. Love it. Man, we've been talking about one of my favorite issues for pastors, which is burnout. And when we had our conversation last episode, I really felt like there was some unfinished business, as did you. And so we talked offline a little bit and said, let's talk a little bit more about this. So if you're in the YouTube audience and you have not watched the previous episode, go back, and it's our episode on the formed leader, and it's all about burnout. And then this is kind of a continuation because we're going to get a little bit deeper into it. And so, man, I'm excited about this, Rick, because I know that you have a testimony. And so let's just start there.
Yeah.
When in your life as a pastor, when did you first realize that there was something wrong, if I could put it that way?
Yeah. The first time I didn't realize it right away. I didn't realize something was wrong. I was pastoring a small church. God was moving. We were reaching families. We were doing back to school haircuts a couple times a year. We did alternative Halloween events, community engagement stuff. We were networking with the schools. The schools were being gracious and letting us in and flyer stuff and taking stuff home. Like the kids would take stuff home. I mean, there was fruit, but a lot of the times I was bivocational while doing that because it was a smaller church. And so for me, like my schedule was more like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I did my secular job to supplement income. And then Tuesday and Thursday, I was at the church. Saturday, I was, tightening up last minute sermon prep stuff. I was doing some admin things, finalizing the slides for Sunday. And then Sunday, that's not relaxing. That's a full work day, and also don't forget there's these Wednesday night events that you typically do and other meetings. So it was basically 7 days a week. And I kept telling myself this. Are you ready, Mo? You may have said this before. It's just for a season. It's just for a season. Got to burn the candle at both ends. It's just for a season. And so what I didn't realize at that time was that season quietly became the structure. And structurally, I was depleting myself. And that was a hard lesson later that I learned because I realized this: calling doesn't cancel capacity limits. You could be doing the right thing for the right reasons for the kingdom, doing it in a way your body can't sustain. I heard this a long time ago. Eventually, your body is going to collect on that bill.
Yeah, man, that's true. And I think, Rick, what you're talking about is what a lot of experts call role overload. And that's when there's just a ton of demand.
Yes.
And your roles just stack. And it's without recovery. And I mean, it's so incredible that for leaders who know that burnout is right around the corner, we just keep flying too close to the sun. You know what I mean?
That's it. Yes. And we get a little suntan and then it becomes a burn. And the next thing you know, you wake up, you got blisters, emotional blisters all over you. And you're like, what happened?
Yeah. And leaders, just know this. A lot of leaders fail not because you're doing the wrong things, but you fail because you're doing too many things and you're not creating limits. And so
100%.
That's what we're talking about today. So Rick, at that point, something's wrong. Did you feel overwhelmed? Did you feel strong? Did you feel somewhere in between?
That's the tricky part, Mo, because I felt strong. I felt driven. I felt like I was grinding for the kingdom. And I told myself, this is what leaders do. You sacrifice, you push, you build. Rah, rah, rah. You just do that. It's for Jesus. And we forget about how Jesus makes us sit down and rest, but we bypass that. We just keep grinding. And here's the thing, because the church was growing, I justified the pace, but fruit can sometimes mask dysfunction. So internally, I was running on adrenaline, and adrenaline is powerful, but it's not sustainable. So what I didn't understand then is that adrenaline can carry you for a while, but eventually you start burning through your deeper reserves. And when those reserves get depleted and you don't just get tired, you start unraveling emotionally.
Yeah. I mean, this is classic adrenaline-based leadership.
Yeah.
In fact, Tony Schwartz talks about leaders running with an energy debt without realizing it.
Yes.
And that's why I wanted to know how you felt, because sometimes we don't know it. We feel strong. We feel like, I'm getting through this. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Who else is going to do this if it's not me? And we start having that hero syndrome.
Yes.
adrenaline mimics strength, and it's actually like it's like borrowed energy.
Yeah.
So, sometimes what feels like strength is actually something that's really unsustainable. Like it's an intensity that we would love to keep, but we just can't.
Yeah.
And, we're not in our 20s anymore, Rick, right? I mean, I don't have the energy. So when did it finally surface in a way that you couldn't ignore, where you said, okay, this is a problem?
Yeah. It was at my oldest son's graduation from high school. We had to move seats in the stadium, and my second son, he was a sophomore, typical, sometimes high schooler, complaining teenager kind of a thing. And, he was complaining and, oh, we got to move our seat, something silly. And I snapped. And I just snapped. And, not and when I say snapped, I don't mean firm, I don't mean corrective, I mean I snapped, and I saw it on his face, and I saw his spirit drop because
Man.
I had never really it was different, it was just something was different about this exchange, and I remember walking away thinking, "That's not me," and it shocked me, and so that moment revealed something deeper, and I did go back, I went back and I said, "Hey, I am so sorry, bud." And, we had a talk and I apologized, asked for his forgiveness. We hugged and, it was good. But nonetheless, that was when a major red flag, was raised. So to me, when that happened, it just showed me that, there's something deeper going on underneath the hood. And burnout just doesn't show up. It wasn't showing up in my schedule. It was showing up in my reactions. It was showing up in who I was becoming under that pressure. And that's when I realized something inside of me felt broken.
Yeah, and I don't know, leaders, can you relate? Because what I hear Rick saying, is, and burnout always reveals itself to us relationally first.
Yes.
It takes something where we screw up a relationship, like you did with your son, and you see that, and it's something that's right in front of you, and you think, "Oh, man," but that's obviously not the first time, that you were dealing with it. It was just now it's affecting other people, the
Mhm.
ones that we love. And
Yeah.
I mean, leaders, your leadership health is most visible not in your results, but in your reactions, as Rick said. It's all about the way that we connect with people. Okay, so you snap, you
Mhm.
realize it's not a good thing. So what happened after that moment?
Booked a doctor's appointment. I just knew. I knew. I felt broken inside. I felt something was off for a while, but I kept like, grinding it out for the kingdom. It's only a season. I just kept pushing. And so I went to the doctor and I remember sitting in the doctor's office and this took me by surprise, Mo. I had no idea. He just said, "What's going on?" That's all it took. And I just broke down crying in his office. I mean, I lost it. And I'm like, what is happening? It was like he just unlocked something just in that simple question. And I began to tell him, like, something's wrong. Something's broke. I don't know what it is. And, I told him I was crying watching football games because someone missed a tackle. Like, I love sports, but I don't love it that much. And it's just like literally I'm telling him these things and I'm like, I know something's off. And so I gave him a bunch of examples and he said, You're burning out. He goes, "You've been running on adrenaline." I gave him my schedule and all of that and what I've been doing. He says, "You've been running on adrenaline. Your serotonin levels are depleting. Your body can't sustain this." And so this was very humbling for me because I thought discipline and willpower can
Huh.
override biology and I could just push through it. And it just can't. And if you think you can, sorry to say this, you're not living in reality. I was going to say something else a little harsher, so I toned it down. Just like literally, just use some humility. You can't do this. Your body's too powerful. Burnout isn't just spiritual or emotional, it's this physiological thing that you have to contend with when it happens. And you can't override chemistry forever. So eventually, your body's going to force a reckoning on you, like it or not. Like it or not, you cannot help it. And that's when I had to step back. I had to restructure. I had to reduce certain things in my life. Even, I'm not ashamed. I got on some medication. And I'll tell you, I took citalopram for a season to help stabilize things while I rebuilt healthier patterns. And, I'm not ashamed of that because the citalopram is not a mood alteration kind of a thing. All it was doing was helping the synapse fire appropriately so I wasn't making mountains out of molehills. And it was helping my brain chemistry recover, get this, recover from what I had done to it.
Yeah, man. I mean, we talk about burnout spiritually, but
Yeah.
really, our body keeps score.
Yes. Yes.
The things that you said, right? Serotonin, cortisol levels, our nervous system, everything.
Yeah.
Work, and I think God does that on purpose, and I think it's good because, God's saying, "Hey, you gotta work within the parameters that I
Yeah.
gave you," and it seems like you, like many of us, were moving outside of those parameters, and so you would think that that experience, that you
Yeah.
had with your son and then having to go to the doctor, man, okay, this is gonna prevent this from ever happening again, right?
Yeah. You would think.
Yeah, but it didn't, so, I mean, tell me about that.
Yeah, no, it didn't. Yeah, I'm kind of hard headed, and I have to learn lessons multiple times. Apparently, years later, I was a general manager for a landscaping company. COVID had hit, things had shut down, life had changed, and I was managing large teams. Had like I don't know, 11 managers underneath me who oversaw I don't know 80 plus people. So it was a big thing here. And there were multiple operating systems, and I had to learn 5 different software platforms just to function in this role. And these are platforms I had been on multiple platforms before. So it's like they kind of all do the same things, but the user experience is just different. So you have to learn them and know which one to go to and all that. And so it required extra hours to kind of get caught up to the rest of the class so I can be a good GM. And so I went from 12-hour days to 15 to 20-hour days. And this was years later, probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years later, after what we were just talking about. And again, I told myself, it's just for a season. It's just for a season. Once I get this down, I find my rhythm, we'll be fine. I'll pull it back. But here's what I learned the hard way. If you can't clearly identify or define the end of the season, then it's not a season. It's becoming your lifestyle. And lifestyle shapes who you become. Stephen Covey, he talks about putting first things first, and I wasn't. Urgent was dominating the important. Work was dominating my recovery time. And
Yeah.
eventually my body enforced a limit I refused to honor voluntarily.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you mentioned Stephen Covey, first things first. It's about value over urgency.
Yeah.
And we don't do that as leaders. We're thinking this has to get done now.
Yeah.
And so if nothing structurally changes, history doesn't repeat, it continues. And so we put ourselves in that situation where there's nowhere to go but to continually go until we just burn ourselves out.
Hmm.
And so leaders, we often learn, the lesson emotionally, but not structurally. And that's what Rick is telling us right here, which is, look, he he he'd seen the relationship with his son, started dealing with it, but didn't change anything structurally. And so
Yeah.
why would we, when we do that, why would we think that anything's different? And we've all been there.
Hmm.
So I think it's good for pastors to hear this because we always think, well, that's not going to happen to me because I know that burnout's on the horizon and I'm going to be the guy that doesn't happen to. And I mean, that's not it. So talk to me about the second burnout then. I mean, as you
Gosh.
got into that, Rick, I mean,
Yeah, it was worse.
because now, yeah, now you've already had it once. You're like, okay, this can't happen again. So what did that look like?
Mo, it was worse. I wasn't myself. My friends told me I had become really the polar opposite of who I am as a person. I'd become harsh, short-tempered. I became detached, black and white, like in healthy ways. I remember outside of my personality kind of changing and becoming a different person. And by the way, I was working 15 to 20 hours for almost a year and a half, like 19 months. So that's important. It wasn't for a month or a couple of months. We're talking a while. And it led me to this point where I'd be driving and I would look over. I'd be on the freeway and I would look over at a peaceful family in another car and instantly just break down crying. And it wasn't about anything specific. It was just overload. I couldn't control it. I'd see something random. I'll make it up like a bird building a nest. I'm just being goofy here, but just something like, okay, you see once in a while, I'd lose it emotionally. Like, what is going on? And I'm like, oh, I know what's happening here. Then I would have chest pains and I went to the hospital and in the ER and they would hook you up and go, dude, you cannot do this. Like, basically you're killing yourself if you continue to do this. And here's what I realized that burnout doesn't just steal your energy. Burnout actually steals your identity in those moments. And it slowly reshapes you into someone you don't recognize. And that was terrifying for me.
Yeah, I mean, burnout doesn't just drain us, right? It distorts who we are. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
and so leaders, when your reactions surprise you, your system is overloaded.
Yep.
And so what we're hearing Rick say here is, I mean, he was starting to surprise himself and not in a good way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, um, so we have to stay away from that. So looking back, what was underneath both those burnouts? Because what I'm hearing is the symptoms, but what core?
Yeah, identity was tied to the grind. If I'm grinding it out, man, it just felt like a man. Felt like,
Sure.
hard work. My dad was very good at, being a hard worker, show up early, stay up late, stay late, always out, just head down, go, go, go. And hard work as a virtue. So identity to the grind, hard work as a virtue, achievement as validation was really at the core. There was this belief in me, if I just pushed a little longer, everything will stabilize. Covey, I mean, he talks about sharpening the saw, and I didn't. I just kept cutting. And eventually you dull yourself. So rest for me is an optional recovery. I believe it's leadership discipline. And so if we refuse to build recovery rhythms, we're going to eventually become that dull saw trying to cut harder. And so for me, underneath identity, hard work, achievement, keep cutting, suddenly my blade was dull.
Hmm. Yeah, I really love what Tim Keller
Love him.
said about this, talking about identity level leadership. But I remember he taught that performance based identity leads to us like just striving and striving, and then
Yeah,
we run ourselves just straight into exhaustion.
that's it.
And he's like, man, you can't do that because when work becomes our identity, and man, I love that. I love that word, Rick. It became your identity, who you are. But when work becomes our identity, rest starts to feel like a threat instead of a gift because
Yep.
you're thinking, well, I can't rest here. I got to keep going. And so I would bet that there's a lot of pastors in our YouTube audience that listen to this and say, yeah, I've been there. Pastors, we would love to hear your stories of burnout or the second burnout or your ninth burnout.
Yeah.
I mean that's why Rick is sharing this today. And so, Rick, was there anything else under the surface? The first time that contributed. I mean, what
Yeah.
what what were you looking at?
So the first one, it was really a lot of it was people pleasing. Becoming
Yeah.
a senior pastor exposed that in me. I didn't think I had that in me. I didn't think I wouldn't have believed that was my thing. When people can leave and giving drops, they vote with their feet kind of a thing. There's this subtle pressure to keep everyone happy. And I found
Mm.
myself managing personalities instead of leading with conviction. So, yeah, I didn't realize that I fell into that trap. And that kind of internal strain, it drained me in ways I didn't notice until I was depleted. So, burnout isn't always about hours. Sometimes it's just about misaligned leadership posture. And if you're constantly reacting instead of leading proactively, you're slowly exhausting yourself.
Yeah, I think people pleasing is huge
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm rereading again Henry Cloud's book
Mm.
Boundaries, and
You
he
love
talks
that book.
about
Yes.
isn't that a great book?
Yeah.
Pastors, if you have not read Boundaries, you've got to read it like yesterday.
I almost need to buy a new copy because I destroyed the other one with all the dog ears and writing and highlighting.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, I'm telling you, I feel like I'm always in that book with somebody, but I'm always telling pastors, young and old, and in between, look, do you know your boundaries? Because he talks about unclear boundaries leading to internal resentment
Hmm.
and then, of course, burnout.
Hmm.
So, leaders, you can't lead people if you're trying to keep everyone happy. I mean,
Hmm.
what Rick said there is huge. As soon as we go into, oh my gosh, we just got to keep these people happy. It's like a leadership drift.
Yeah.
You're now reacting instead of leading, and that's just going to create an emotional pressure that's just going to push down on you
Yeah.
and just destroy you. So,
Yeah.
talk to me about that. That was the first crash. What changed after the second crash?
I embraced limits. That thing. I just was like, no more. I cannot do a three-peat on this. And it was hard. I had to simplify, reduce inputs. I had to be able to get comfortable saying no because that's not good for me. Because it's like I'm a man. I could do anything. And I had to go, you know what? I'm in my mid 50s now. Sorry, I'm not 35 and I'm not going to do that. Like being okay with where you are and what reality is. And I had to swallow some pride. I can't be the guy that does everything. And I did that too much. So I've learned in all of this something really important. Structural change matters more than emotional motivation. You cannot inspire yourself out of burnout. You have to rebuild your week. You have to restructure and you have to go, I can't do this. Men, it's okay to say, I can't do this. I know your dad said, I don't ever want to hear you say I can't. I'm sorry. That's dumb. Because sometimes and I say that, and I think we all know what I'm talking about. So if you keep the same structure, you're going to get the same outcome. Sorry,
Man,
I'm
I
being real.
I feel like you've been reading my journal, Rick. I'm like, what's going on here? I mean, this is great for me to hear. Everybody in my audience knows that my favorite quote is by a guy nobody really knows. He's not famous or anything, but he says, "Hard work wins," and I believe that.
Yeah.
But there's limits to that.
Yeah. There's limits.
Hard work wins doesn't mean you just work and work and work until you kill yourself. It's working both harder and smarter.
Yeah.
And you could do both, and again, as a sports coach, we want people to work harder. We want people to build character, but we don't want people to burn out. And I've got to say, Rick, I've caused people to hit burnout before, just as a coach, as a pastor, when people are looking to me for my leadership.
Yeah.
And because I'm going, it causes other people to do that. And
Yes. Yeah.
in leadership, you're now just not affecting you, but you're affecting other people. For instance, like with your son,
Yeah.
relationally, but also relationally with those who look to you. Because if you're working and on the way to burnout, where the heck are they going to go? Same place.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. And many people will try to keep up with the pace of the leader. They'll feel guilty if he's in early. Oh, I kind of can't,
Right.
there's that pressure and you're actually being not mindful as a leader when you're doing that. And you could tell yourself, well, they don't have to come in early and stay late. Come on. They
Yeah.
just do because you're doing it. So there's a responsibility on us that I think we need to own and be mindful of. And here's the other thing, Mo, that, God never burns out, but God still rested.
Yeah.
When he created the heavens and the earth.
Yeah. Because they knew we were going to need it.
Yeah, it was a model,
Right.
and even Jesus as a man, fully God, still rested. Why? Because he also had a physical flesh and he knew the limits of it.
Yeah. 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 How many times did Jesus withdraw
Yeah.
and go to a quiet place?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then here we are thinking, oh, I'm just going to be like the disciples and more people need help. And
Yeah.
Jesus is like,
I'm out.
no, we're going to withdraw. We're going to go over here where nobody else is. Sometimes he even withdrew from the disciples. I think he did that because he's like, I can't even deal with these guys.
Yeah, yeah. I need a break.
Yeah, I need a break from these guys. So leaders, your calendar is your leadership theology and practice. So don't mistake that. Don't say one thing and do the other. We're not preaching to you. I feel like Rick and I are talking to ourselves right now. And if this makes sense to you, maybe you're dealing with the same thing. So
Mhm.
I got one more question.
Yeah.
Rick, regarding the audience, what would you say to a leader who is listening and says what you said earlier on, which keeps on coming into my head? Oh, it's just for a season.
Mm.
It'll pass and then I'll slow down. What do you say to that person?
I would say be honest. Just be honest. If you can't name when it ends, it's not a season. Temporary overextension easily becomes permanent culture. And so if you can't name when the season ends, then you're creating a permanent culture here. And the most dangerous lie I told myself multiple times was just a little longer, just a little longer. Burnout isn't proof you care deeply. It's proof you ignore limits repeatedly. And limits are enemies, they're invitations. And so God is not honored by your collapse. He is honored by your faithfulness and your desire to structure your life to be long term in the game. That you structure your life because you're looking for sustainability. And in doing that, you're going to be obedient to him. That's what's going to put a smile on God's face, not you grinding it out.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a dangerous, place to be. If you're flirting with that, with burnout, whether it's your first, second, or multiple times after that,
Yeah.
it doesn't allow you to be honest with yourself. And Andy Stanley has a great quote where he said, direction, not intention, determines destination. So you can have all the best intentions in the world,
That's it.
but let me see where you're going and where you're facing. And if that's where your compass is taking you, sorry, it doesn't matter what your intentions are, leaders. And just like Rick's talking about, a season with no end date, and it's just a lifestyle in
Mhm.
disguise.
That's
And
it.
so, and you're talking about, the temporary or what we think is temporary, but those temporary decisions create permanent consequences if we keep repeating them. Leaders, what are you doing, and what are the things that you're repeating, the actions that you're repeating in your life right now? Because if you are going in the wrong direction, it doesn't matter that you're trying to go over here, you're on your way to burnout. So Rick, what's your final thought?
I would say leadership is a marathon, and you cannot sprint a marathon without paying for it. Simple as that.
Man, leaders, we know you care,
Yeah.
but leaders burn out because they care too much sometimes. And so be the kind of leader that is able to carry what God gives you, but the way that God wants you to do it. Don't, you were not designed to carry all this alone. And you're not supposed to do it indefinitely.
That's
So
it.
take some time. Rick, thanks so much for your thoughts on this today. Thanks for sharing your testimony, putting this out for everybody to see on the internet. I mean, this is this is powerful stuff. So the leaders, please like this episode, share it with somebody that needs. Just say, hey, I don't think you need this, but I'm just giving this to you, asking for a friend kind of thing.
Yeah.
We all probably need to hear it, and we probably know somebody who needs to hear this. So, check out rtclc.com, sign up for our newsletter, go over to ChurchHub.ai, follow Rick, and we got a ton of content. And Rick, we're going to be continue moving through the Form Leader next week.
Yep.
Can't wait to hear it. Until then, brother, thanks.
Have a good one, Mo. We'll see you.
You too. All right.
We hope that you will join us next week as we continue on the leadership journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out, and share with others so they don't miss out. See you next week.